My name is Chris, and at 27 years old, I thought I had developed a thick enough skin to handle my family's usual brand of cruelty. But that text still hit like a punch to the ribs. "Please don't come to your dad's birthday party," my mom messaged. "No one wants you there." Then, as if that wasn't sharp enough, my brother chimed in. "Yeah, seriously, don't make it weird." I didn't reply. I didn't argue. I just stared at the glowing screen, read the words twice, and then quietly left them a blue box. When they opened it, my dad tried to disown me, and my mom started screaming at the guests to leave. If you've ever been betrayed by the very people who were supposed to protect you, to love you unconditionally, let me know where you're watching from. Because that night, I realized some betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from the people who share your last name. I wish I could tell you I threw my phone across the room, that I screamed, cried, or at least had some kind of dramatic movie moment that could have made the pain feel justified. But no. I just stood there, halfway through microwaving yesterday's leftovers, while the hum of the machine filled the silence. The kitchen clock ticked, the microwave beeped, and the group chat glowed mockingly on my cracked phone screen, like the punchline to a joke that stopped being funny years ago. It shouldn't have surprised me. It really shouldn't have, but somehow it still did. It wasn't just what they said, it was how they said it. So casual, so emotionless. Like they were discussing weekend plans or the weather. "Bring a jacket, it might rain. Oh, and don't come, no one wants you." And the worst part, some small, naive part of me still cared. The microwave beeped again, louder this time, like it was demanding I snap out of it. My hands moved on autopilot. I shut the chat, set down my plate, and stared into nothing, the words echoing over and over. I don't even know what made me do it. Maybe pride, maybe pain. But I called. Spite, probably. The kind that makes you give someone one last chance to hurt you, just to confirm they still can. It rang twice. Then my mom answered. Her voice already carried that edge, that sound she used when she was annoyed but trying to act like she wasn't. "What now, Chris?" She sighed. I swallowed. I don't understand. Why would you say that? Why am I not welcome?" There was a pause. A long theatrical sigh followed, the kind that said, "I'm so tired of dealing with you." "Look," she said finally, "we're going to have important people here tonight. People who could really help your brother's career. We can't afford to complicate things." "Complicate things," I repeated, my voice flat. And then came Kyle's voice in the background, sharp and smug. "Yeah, seriously, you're still a waitress, right? What if someone recognized you?" That did it. My throat tightened, but not from sadness. Just disbelief. Because yes, I was still a waitress. Not because I'd failed, but because I was working 2 jobs. One to pay my bills, and another to secretly keep theirs from collapsing. They knew that. They knew. And yet, here they were, embarrassed of the only person actually keeping their lights on. I took a breath that scraped on the way out. "Got it," I said quietly. 2 words. Clean. Final. Like I was checking myself off their list. Then I hung up before they could make it worse. The silence that followed was heavy. The room even felt colder, like the air itself knew something had shifted. The first thing I did was cancel the payments, mortgage, utilities, credit cards, all of it. Click, click, click. Each cancellation like cutting another invisible chain. Years of quiet sacrifice gone in minutes. Then came the box. An old, sturdy one from my closet. I wrapped it in bright blue paper, neat corners, shiny tape. Added a card on top, just 3 words. "Please open together." No signature. No explanation. By the time I drove to their house, the street was crowded with shiny cars, leased luxury sedans gleaming under the streetlights. Through the tall windows, I saw laughter, champagne, and people in suits pretending to like each other. My parents' world. Glossy, fake, suffocating. I almost turned back. Almost. But I didn't. I climbed the steps, set the box on the doormat, pressed the doorbell once, and walked away. Then I sat in my car across the street, engine off, lights out, watching, waiting, not for them. For me, the minutes crawled. The sky deepened into a bruised purple. Inside, I could see my parents smiling, toasting, selling their fantasy of success. I watched until the front door opened. My father stepped out, saw the box, frowned. He bent down, picked it up, and carried it inside. I exhaled slowly, feeling something shift deep in my chest. I didn't know what I felt, anger maybe, or release. When my phone buzzed, I didn't even look at first. But curiosity won. I slid my thumb across the screen and lifted it to my ear. "You're not my daughter anymore." My father's voice roared through the speaker, raw and furious. Behind him came the chaos, shouting, glass shattering, my mother's panicked screams. "The party is over. Everyone just leave." Then silence. The call ended. I sat there, still holding the phone against my ear. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. I didn't even feel angry. I just felt free. You'd think betrayal would come with a warning. Dark music, ominous foreshadowing, something cinematic. But no, it's quieter than that. It sneaks in, one disappointment at a time, until you wake up one day realizing your family stopped seeing you as a person long ago. Growing up, my brother Kyle had been the sun around which our entire family orbited, the golden child, the prodigy, the boy who could do no wrong. It started with a math competition ribbon in 4th grade, one little blue piece of satin pinned to the fridge, and suddenly my parents were talking about Harvard like it was next Tuesday's errand. "He's gifted," my mom would beam. "He's going places," my dad would boast, puffing up with borrowed pride. And me? I was usually in the background, holding a plate, washing dishes, babysitting someone's kids while Kyle was off building robots or writing essays about world peace. He got tutors. I got chores. He got praise. I got lectures about responsibility and hard work. Ironic, right? By the time we hit high school, the gap between us was less a gap and more a canyon. Kyle got sent to a private prep school that cost more than most people's mortgages. I worked part-time at the local grocery store, bagging lettuce for women who couldn't even meet my eyes. But I kept going. Head down, quiet, obedient. I told myself one day I'd earn my place at the table. Maybe they'd finally notice. Maybe they'd be proud. Spoiler alert, they weren't. Not when I graduated college after years of pulling double shifts. Not when I covered their overdue mortgage payments. Not even when I used my savings to keep their credit from tanking during my dad's business crisis, which mostly involved golf carts and yelling at CNBC. They didn't notice. They never did. Kyle, on the other hand, was their masterpiece. Finance degree, city apartment, paid internships that somehow involved no actual work. Every dinner, every holiday was a commercial for his bright future. When he makes it big, we'll all be taken care of. My mom would sigh dreamily. I used to wonder where I fit into that fantasy. Maybe as the maid on their imaginary yacht. I tried not to be bitter. I told myself being self-sufficient was enough. That I didn't need them to validate my worth. And maybe that lie might have held, if not for the phone call that shattered it. One Friday night, at my second job, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I ignored it once, twice. On the third try, I picked up, balancing a tray of drinks. "Hey, are you Kyle's sister?" a nervous voice asked. "Yeah, why?" "He's wasted. Like really wasted. Listed you as his emergency contact. You might want to come get him before the cops do." Perfect. The golden boy strikes again, so I went. Of course I went, because that's what invisible siblings do. We clean up the mess. We drive home the star. When I found him, he was sprawled on a velvet couch in some overpriced rooftop bar, arguing, loudly, with a potted plant. The bouncer gave me a look that said, "Please, just take him and leave." Dragging him out felt like wrestling a drunk octopus, and maybe that's where it really began. The moment I realized the difference between us wasn't luck or talent. It was that I kept showing up for people who would never do the same for me. That night, I didn't just drag Kyle home. I started dragging myself out of the wreckage of who I used to be, and I never went back. Somewhere between the third and fourth attempt to buckle his seatbelt, he started laughing hysterically. "Sis," he slurred, "you're the real MVP. Seriously, no lectures. Tomorrow, no classes. Natsetta, I'm free." I frowned. "Aren't finals next week?" He snorted. "Not for me. I dropped out like months ago. Screw that place, I'm living the dream now. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember parking. I just remember following him into his overpriced apartment, still trying to process what he said and seeing it, the letter sitting carelessly on his kitchen counter. Official college stationery, formal tone, withdrawal confirmed, effective immediately, academic performance unsatisfactory. I picked it up with shaking hands, half hoping it was some kind of prank. It wasn't. He dropped out months ago. Meanwhile, Kyle passed out face first on the couch, still giggling to himself about how smart he was, his phone buzzed against the cushions, screen lighting up with half a dozen new notifications. It was unlocked. I know I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The group chats were full of videos, him bragging, mocking, drinking himself stupid, private conversations he never thought would see daylight. I sent them to myself quietly, heart pounding the whole time, and somehow, even in my stunned horror, I could hear my parents' voices in my head. He's doing so well. He's going to make us all rich. We're so proud. Proud of what? An expensive dropout with a drinking problem and a complete lack of shame. I set the letter down carefully, like it might explode if I touched it wrong. But it didn't because deep down I already knew it wasn't about him. It never had been. It was about them. Their dreams, their pride, their desperate belief that they could buy success if they just wished hard enough. No, now they were betting their entire future on a lie. They say timing is everything. And apparently so is presentation. Because from what I heard later, my blue box made quite the entrance. Picture it, a house full of important people. Dad handing out scotch like he's some kind of Wall Street kingpin. Mom floating from guest to guest, laughing a little too loudly, desperate for someone to ask about her son's bright future. The music soft in the background. The smell of catered finger foods in there. Everyone dressed just a little too uniously, sipping just a little too carefully, pretending they weren't all there to size each other up like cattle at an auction. And there, sitting innocently by the fireplace, was my gift wrapped in shiny blue paper, a neat little note taped to the top for Dad. Please open at the party. Apparently, a few guests even commented on it. What a sweet daughter you have. So thoughtful. Yeah, thoughtful. Let's go with that. I wasn't there to see it, of course. But based on the phone calls I got afterward, and the absolute meltdown that followed, I can piece together the moment pretty clearly. Dad, grinning like a man about to accept a Lifetime Achievement Award, pulled the ribbon loose with a flourish. Someone clapped. A few people leaned in. Inside the box wasn't papers. It was Asmol flash drive tucked into a velvet jewelry box. It looked sentimental, sweet. Maybe a photo montage or a video message. Dad puffed up with pride, waved it around, and joked about his thoughtful daughter finally appreciating him. Someone suggested plugging it into the TV right there so everyone could see. Dad loved that idea. They did. The screen flickered. Soft music started playing. At first it did look sweet. Photos of us as kids smiling awkwardly at family holidays. Then it changed. Screenshots, emails, the official withdrawal notice from Kyle's university, complete with red stamps and signatures. And then the real show started. Videos, clips of Kyle chugging beer out of a plastic flamingo, passed out on a yacht that definitely wasn't this, loudly telling anyone who would listen that college was a scam, and he was just taking the money for fun. And the audio recordings in them, Kyle's voice was crystal clear. My parents are such idiots they'll believe anything. I just tell them I need more tuition money and boom, instant cash. Like, what are they going to do? Cut me off. They need me to be rich. Another one recorded even later when the drinks were really flowing. Even if I made it big, which let's be real, probably not. I'm not giving them a cent. Screw that. I'm moving to Bali or something. They can drown in their debt for all I care. Charming, right? I imagine the look on Dad's face as he realized the son had bragged about to anyone with ears, thought of him as little more than a piggy bank with dementia. Apparently, that's about when the shouting started. Dad demanded someone turn it off, but it was too late. Everyone had already seen. Mom tried to smooth it over, tried to laugh it off like it was a prank, maybe, or some deep fake nonsense, but the documents had seals. The withdrawal notice from Kyle's university wasn't forged. Neither were the emails confirming his academic dismissal months ago. He hadn't been a student for a long time, but he sure had enjoyed spending tuition money like it was his personal trust fund. One of the guests, a partner at a hedge fund, ironically, asked quietly if the internship offer was still on the table. Mom said something shrill and desperate. Dad knocked over a tray of wine glasses trying to grab him. The man left without another word. So did the next couple and the next. The party deflated faster than a bouncy house at a kid's birthday party when someone lets their dog inside. And then, cherry on top, right there in the middle of the carnage, Kyle stood up, still slightly drunk, still slightly cocky, but just sober enough to mean every word. You know what he said loud enough for everyone left to hear? I never wanted any of this. Finance, hedge funds, suit and tie. That was your dream, not mine. I just wanted you to shut up and leave me alone. Mom gasped. Dad looked like he was about 5 seconds away from stroking out. I'm not your retirement plan, Kyle added. I never was. And then, with a sloppy little bow and a middle finger aimed squarely at both of them, he walked out the front door. No apology, no regret, just gone. I didn't hear about all the finer details until later from a neighbor who wasn't supposed to be gossiping, but absolutely was. Thanks, Mrs. Perkins. You're a real one. What I did get immediately was the aftermath. Voicemails from Mom, texts from Dad, a flurry of half-coherent, half-blaming, all pathetic attempts to pull me back into the burning wreckage. You need to come fix this. You're part of this family, whether you like it or not. You're not my daughter anymore. Spoiler. I dared. I didn't answer. I didn't even listen all the way through. I just set me phone down on silent and let the notifications pile up like snowdrifts. They had built their empire on a fantasy, on the back of a boy who never wanted to be their golden ticket. On the assumption that I would always be there to patch the holes, smooth over the cracks, shoulder the burden. No, it was all falling apart. Not with a bang, not even with a whimper, just a slow, inevitable crumble. Piece by crumbling piece, and for once I wasn't underneath it. I didn't block their numbers right away. For a while I just watched. Let the calls roll in. Let the texts pile up like trash drifting in the gutter after a parade. At first it was all anger. You're not my daughter anymore. How dare you embarrass your family like this? You're just jealous of your brother? That first one made me laugh. Not out loud, just a short, breathless huff. Because honestly, I was pretty sure I'd stopped being their daughter a long time ago. All that party did was make it official. After the anger came the guilt. We're family, Chris. You can't turn your back on us now. You know how much we've sacrificed for you. Your brother made a mistake, but we can still fix this if we work together, right? Because nothing says, let's fix this like disowning someone on speakerphone in front of 100 of your closest future business partners. At first, I thought it might die down that maybe eventually they'd get tired of screaming into the void. But as the weeks dragged on, the tone shifted. Anger, guilt, that was just the opening act. The real panic set in when the bills started coming due. Without Kyle's imaginary millions on the horizon, and without me quietly plugging holes in their finances, the cracks became impossible to ignore. Mortgage payments started bouncing. Credit card companies began calling with a little more urgency. Utilities sent warning notices about overdue balances. Even the Hochmeden threatening fines over the state of their lawn, which, according to Mrs. Perkins, had started looking like asset piece from a post-apocalyptic movie. And for the first time in years, I wasn't the one racing to fix it. With their bills no longer draining my bank account, I finally had breathing room. I quit my second job, the waitressing shifts I used to squeeze in after my real job, and got my weekends back. There were nights now when I came home and actually rested instead of collapsing into bed like a corpse. There were paychecks I didn't have to split between 3 emergency payments I didn't even cause. It felt like finding whole pieces of myself I forgot I'd ever lost. And still I stayed silent. Summer slipped into fall. Pumpkins appeared on porches. Leaves turned brittle and red and began choking the gutters. I imagined my parents still throwing dinner parties in their heads, still clinging to the fantasy that any day now Kyle would swoop back in and fix everything. But Kyle was gone. Last I heard, he was somewhere out west, living in a group house with a bunch of aspiring DJs and bartending to pay their rent. Finding himself, I guess, good for him. Mom and Dad, meanwhile, finally swallowed enough pride to reach out again. Not to apologize, not to make things right, to beg, Chris, please, you have to help us. We're drowning here. You can't just abandon your own parents. What will people think? We gave you everything. Everything. That word hit differently now because the truth was, they hadn't given me anything I hadn't fought and bled for myself. And now they were realizing too late that the safety nets they counted on, their brilliance in, their forgotten daughter, weren't going to catch them. I didn't reply. I didn't answer the door when they showed up one desperate afternoon, hammering their fists against the frame like a pair of angry salesmen. I didn't even peek through the blinds. I just waited until they left. It wasn't easy. It wasn't some glorious moment of triumph where I felt weightless and victorious. It was heavy, messy, but it was mine. Winter crept in. Frost crusted the sidewalks. Christmas lights appeared in the houses down the block, blinking weakly against the early dark. And about 7 months after the party, Mrs. Perkins stopped me outside my building, clutching a grocery bag and wearing that particular expression that meant she was about to spill all the tea. "Did you hear?" she asked, leaning in like we were sharing state secrets. "They lost the house. Foreclosure final. Everything hauled out onto the curb by strangers wearing reflective vests, old furniture, boxes of dusty Christmas decorations, family portraits, rain-soaked and curling at the edges." Neighbors whispered. Cars slowed down to rubberneck. Another cautionary tale about living beyond your means. Mom and Dad ended up renting a cramped, crumbling one-bedroom across town. No more manicured lawns. No more dinner parties. No more fantasies about golden futures and financial miracles. Just atony-peeling apartment and a mountain of bills they couldn't outrun. I didn't go visit. I didn't reach out. I didn't feel hatred or triumph. Just nothing. And that nothing was sweeter than any revenge I could have planned. I spent New Year's alone by choice, sipped a glass of cheap champagne on my tiny balcony, watched the fireworks in the distance, soft and shimmering through the cold night air. For the first time in my life, I made a resolution that wasn't about surviving someone else's expectations. I made it about me. Stay free. Stay kind. Stay gone. Spring arrived quietly. The neighbor's kid learned to ride a bike without training wheels, wobbling past my window with a look of pure terror and pure joy, all mixed together. And one sunny afternoon, sitting at my kitchen table with the window cracked open and the smell of fresh cut grass drifting in, I realized something. I hadn't thought about them all day. Not once. Not their disappointment. Not their bills. Not the hole they tried to bury me in. I was free. And this time, no one could take that away from me. Sometimes I wonder if I handled it the right way. Maybe it should have gone to them privately, told them what Kyle had done, shown them the truth quietly without turning their party into a public disaster. Maybe it wasn't my place to humiliate them like that, no matter how badly they treated me. But part of me also thinks, would they even have listened? Or would they have just made excuses the way they always did? I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe.